I want to dive deep into this concept of shame around self-pleasure and just pleasure in general, right?
Yes.
Right. So welcome. So you are a registered nurse and you are a certified transformational Tantra coach. Your website shows that you are a coach who teaches how to get off the best while getting the most out of life.
Yes.
And I love that you wrote that you have a holistic approach to coaching by focusing on harnessing the power of your body to master self-love. And it's this self-love that leads us to experience the pure bliss of soulful connection.
So important. It's how I transformed my life and healed so many things for myself. So I just want to share this medicine with the world.
I love that. Oh, I love that. Okay, let's dive into Tantra. It's so funny. If you say you have a program about Tantra in Austin, it's like sold out.
Oh my goodness.
There's a Tantra craze right now in Austin.
I love that.
What is it all about?
The curiosity. I know for me, decades ago, I first heard about Tantra because of Sting. And at that point, I would approach sex more like Samantha from Sex and the City. And I was very in my masculine energy and about my ego. And so I was just like, oh, wow, sex for 5 hours. That sounds great. Plus, I'm a Scorpio born on Halloween. So, Scorpios were like the sex sign of the zodiac. So I was like, oh, yes, tell me more about this Tantra. But I delayed my whole journey because I thought I needed a partner to begin. So I even bought a book, but I didn't even open it. I shelved the book and was like, oh, when this person appears, then I can begin this part of my life. And I wish I had opened it then, because I would have seen, oh, there's solo practices. And it really is about, not even just about sex, it's about the relationship with yourself. That's the whole foundation for Tantra. So but I love it.
Okay, explain more what Tantra is then.
Yes. Tantra's ancient practices from India from thousands of years ago, and it was initially not even supposed to be used by women. The men that were kind of like, if you think of like Buddhist monks or the Zen masters that would be meditating for hours and hours a day, and they're really wanting to get into transcendence and enlightenment, they would use these practices by focusing different Tantra techniques through their chakras and their energy centers, and then raising their sexual energy through their, root chakra up through their other chakras to open them, and in a way to open up their third eye and their crown chakra and be in these enlightened, elevated states. So the intention wasn't even about having better sex.
Great sex.
No? Yeah, that wasn't even it.
Interesting.
And it was just about this amazing self-mastery and connecting to our life force energy and using even our sexual energy as like transmuting it. We don't just need to create a human life with our sexual energy. We can tap into self-actualization and creating the life that our heart desires. So it allows for more enlightenment and more expansion. But in that process, a person starts to let go of the things from the ego and really has this loving relationship and connection within themselves. And, intimacy first begins with the relationship with yourself. And when you can have intimacy with yourself, when you have a lot of love and self-love for yourself, and you're actually able to enjoy the pleasure and the sensations in your body and your sexual energy and not shame it or repress it or shut it down, and you can just channel it towards, your own personal growth and evolution or towards manifesting what you're wanting, like the world just opens up for you. And you also learn there's a lot of meditative practices and breathwork practices, and those actually help with, us being more present and healing other things. So right now I'm getting my Master Coach certification. And one of the interesting things that they're teaching in there when I'm learning more about trauma is that the three main things that support healing trauma is breath, sound, and movement. Well, the three main tenets of Tantra, the foundation, is breath, sound, and movement. So when these people were doing these techniques and these practices, they're actually letting go of their own traumas and their own wounds. And it's a healing journey for them. And then when we have this beautiful relationship with ourselves, we can be more present when we connect with another. Then we can have that deeper intimacy.
Yeah.
And then we become better lovers because we have so much self-compassion and love for ourselves, and we've let go of shame and a lot of things. And so then when we're relating with another person, we also can give them compassion and love and not be in judgment of them. Because when people are very critical or judgment of us, it's often because they're also doing that same thing to themselves.
100%.
Right? And so Tantra really gives you these tools in our modern world, right? We're so conditioned, we've been domesticated through childhood and in school, that our value is based on how much information we can hold in our brain. How many facts can we recite of even the most boring things that don't interest us? How well we score on exams, what our SAT scores, what our college, where are we going to college, what degrees are we having? And we do this thing with one another where we're just like comparing and just trying to measure up based on this. And so we start to move in the world just operating really from the neck up, and we're in our overthinking mind. And that disconnects us from our true power centers and all the chakras that are inside our body. It disconnects us, especially if there's shame, which I know we'll explore in a bit, of repressing that powerful energy. And so then we're just like, we're so limiting ourselves, but then we're disconnected from our bodies, disconnected from our hearts. We're often guarded in our hearts from mother-father wounds or past traumas in other relationships, and we shut down to not be hurt again. But those walls that we create from those painful experiences, we think that it's an armor to protect us, but we're actually blocking so much from flowing to us and for us being in our most expansive selves. And so when we can drop those things, we just can connect in such a deep level with another soul and another person. And then the byproduct of that is that the sex is amazing, like nothing you've ever experienced before. And the other part of that is the overthinking kind of monkey mind will distract us from experiencing pleasure in our body, because we're worrying about maybe how do we look? Do I look like the women that appear on the covers of the magazines? Is he noticing how my stomach looks in this position? Or the male could be worried about things like that. And so, or we're worried about the day's events or what we have to do the next day. And we're not fully present, even within ourselves, much less our partner. And so when we're able to drop in and really connect, that amplifies the entire experience. Plus with Tantra, it helps you do this by helping use your 5 senses so you can connect and drop into your body and then start to experience pleasure and connection more deeply through all your 5 senses instead of just, going through the motions.
So important. This concept of dropping into your body can be applied. I've had it come up in many podcasts, even when we're discussing business, like making business decisions. How do you drop into your heart and make a choice from there? So this Tantra, what I'm hearing is sound, breath, and movement helps you bring your attention from the judgmental mind of what do I look like, what do I smell like, what do I taste like, what do I sound like, right? And just judging and worrying about the other person's experience, which was my experience many times, especially younger. And now through sound, breath, and movement, you're able to drop into the physical sensations you're actually feeling.
Yes.
And then you let go essentially of the judgment, and you can't really be in both at the same time, maybe, right?
Right. Yes.
And that's the practice probably, is just staying in that physical sensation space, and then you get to really feel all the pleasure.
Most definitely.
Instead of blocking it with worrying about silly things that the other person's not even thinking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. Can you share some of the techniques in terms of sound, breath, and movement that can support people right away?
Yeah, I would love to. With the breath work, even for both males and females, whenever you're having sex or self-pleasuring, if you will just take deeper breaths, breathe more deeply. And even if you're not familiar with the chakras or your energy centers, I just like to say, visualize that from your sex organs to your brain and the top of your head, that there's a straw going in your body, a channel. And that as you're breathing, you're actually going to take a deep breath and imagine you're breathing like through in Tantra, they call the pussy vagina the yoni, Or for penis, they call it the lingam, which is a wand of light.
A wand of light.
Yes.
That's one way to put it.
Yes. And the yoni is like a sacred space.
Okay.
And so whenever you are breathing through your sex organs and breathing up that pleasure, so when you start to feel that arousal energy, you want to go ahead and have that intention. And where our attention goes, energy flows. So just visualize that turn on energy flowing up through your body and breathing it up to the top of your head. And then when you exhale, just imagine like a waterfall, like it just drops down behind you. And then you circle it back up. And I've also studied Taoist practices. I've attended workshops by Master Montauk Chia, who's taught that for like 50 years. And in Taoist practice, it's called the microcosmic orbit of how, we are our own universe, and we're just circling this energy through us. And it also helps with our organs. It helps with longevity. It improves our well-being so much because we're just allowing that amazing, powerful energy to flow through our bodies. And so you'll have better orgasms. And one thing that I did notice when I learned this is that sometimes I would be having sex and I would just be about to be on the verge of having an intense orgasm. I mean, you just could feel, I was like, whoa, this is going to be amazing. And then all of a sudden it would just be poof, gone. And I was just like, what happened? Like it was just right there. Where did it go? And then when I started understanding with Tantra, I started noticing, and, I love being my own little scientist. I say I'm like the Sherlock Holmes of sex. And I started noticing that a lot of times when we're having such intense pleasure, unconsciously, we will hold our breath. We'll breath hold. Even infants or babies. I worked in recovery room and have to watch babies as they're recovering from anesthesia. And they'll breath hold. A lot of babies will just hold their breath sometimes. And you have to watch them with that. So we do that too. And we'll hold our breath. And then we also will constrict or have tension in our body. So then that's how sound is helpful, because sound is like a thief and it steals the tension from your body. And so if you are able to moan and use your voice and activate the energy center in your throat chakra, that releases tension and you have better sex. But unfortunately, so many people are afraid to use sound, or they're self-conscious, or they're worried what their partner will think or someone in the next room. But sound is actually an amazing tool to enhance the pleasure that you're going to experience. And then having that movement, even if you dance before you're going to have sex and have some sensual dancing, or before you're going to self-pleasure, that movement, especially if you do like a circle 8 with your hips, it starts to get that energy flowing, and it increases the blood flow to your sex organs, and helps like male erections be stronger, and helps females have better orgasms. So when you bring all those things together, you can have a much more orgasmic experience. But it's just knowing this, because we just aren't aware. We just have gone about doing things in a certain way. And then just to go back to talking about babies, when we are first born, whenever we breathe in so deep. We take in nice deep belly breaths. But we have learned from watching our parents and the world around us that have become constricted and closed down to, kind of play smaller and to restrict and constrict. And so we don't breathe as deep. But whenever I would care for babies in recovery room, if we want to count their respiratory rate, we count the movement of the abdomen, of their bellies, because they take nice full breaths the way we intend to do. But we almost make a corset, we're just like, suck in your gut, hold it in, right? And we're restricting. And then we're limiting our breath, the amount of breath that we take in. And we're not getting as much oxygenation to our sex organs because, again, another reason Tantra helps, your brain is your largest sex organ.
Wow.
Yeah, so the orgasm actually is happening. It's sensing things in different parts of the body, but it's actually activating in through the brain. And so what happens is that whenever we are holding our breath, it's like the orgasm is almost like this, like a candle flame. And if you cover the candle flame and take away the oxygen, it goes away. So if you can breathe into yourself and into your body, you can have more intense orgasms and expand your pleasure.
Okay, I'm excited to try this because I feel like I feel like I had to hold my breath to have the orgasm. Interesting.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'm going to try this out. Like, I feel like I needed almost to create that tension to then have an explosion.
Interesting. And everyone can be a little different, but it's good to kind of play with both ways.
I want to try something different.
For sure. Most definitely.
Does Tantra teach also like pleasuring before even intercourse? Is there the caressing and all of that involved?
There's a lot of practices with, they call them like lingam worship or yoni worship. And it's
a wand of light worship.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. And I just did a post on I have 2 different Instagram accounts, and I did one that was it was a beautiful poem called Conscious Cock as Medicine.
Nice.
And I'll be sharing it soon on my blog, but it's so powerful. But yes, like if, there's amazing transformation. Like when I first had my experience with Tantra, I had what I call a soulgasm. And my lover, I didn't even know that he had studied Tantra. He had been doing these practices for over a year. He'd even dated a Tantra coach. And he had this high level of self-mastery. So he was able to have non-ejaculatory orgasms and have stamina for hours. And so in that experience, I was able to have prolonged ecstatic states of bliss that led to me having what they call a Kundalini Awakening, where the energy in my base chakra surged all the way up through and opened my third eye and my crown chakra. And that completely changed my whole life path.
Wow, what did that feel like?
It was amazing. Like I had never experienced that much pleasure in my life. I didn't even know that was possible. And we were not on any substances.
I was about to say, that sounds like ecstasy.
Yeah, no, we were not on any substances. And I didn't even know he had these skills. And I could just feel, I'm very intuitive, being born on Halloween, I'm very intuitive. And there's a way that you can sense, I believe as a woman, that when we get so turned on in our arousal, if we really let go, then we're going to push the male, like our fire within our vagina, yoni, whatever, in our bodies is going to get them so aroused that they'll go to the point of no return, and then it's game over. So we often have to pace ourselves. I know that I enjoy having sex for a long time, but I would have to pace myself and have something and then hold back a little bit. And because I was like, I didn't want it to stop. I was like, okay, hold on now. One of my friends that I used to date years ago, we were even laughing about this today. I would always tell him, just one more minute. Just give me one more minute. And so anyway, with this person, my intuition, I could just sense that I was having this pleasure and I was like on top, and he was like, honor me as the goddess. And I just continued to have orgasm after orgasm. And I was watching him, and he was so confident, or should I say cockfident? He was so confident. And he just was so relaxed. And I was like, oh, wow, my waves of pleasure are not phasing him. Like, he's got this. And I was like, interesting. Let me keep this going. So then I just could loosen the reins, and I didn't need to hold back anywhere. And that allowed me to have these peak orgasms that I didn't even know was possible. And I experienced prolonged states of bliss with him for 5 hours.
Wow.
And it felt like time stood still, as if maybe I knew a lot had happened and transpired, but it was almost like maybe 20 minutes or an hour went by because it was so pleasurable. Now, afterwards, I shared with one of my girlfriends. She's like, oh my gosh, girl, you always like to have sex for a long time. I just like, come on, can we get it done with? Because I think that a lot of our experiences as women are being with partners that have learned about sex by watching porn. And so they're doing moves, and they're doing this whole jackhammer thing and moving really fast. And they're disconnected from us a lot of times. They're like fantasizing in their mind, and they're not really fully present. And your presence is a present. It's the truest gift. And so he was completely meditative and just really focused and connecting in with me. And it was really so beautiful. And then, I could just sense like, oh my gosh, I can really explore what my fullest orgasmic capacity was. And prior to this, I was already having sex better sex than most of my friends. My friends, I was already a guest on Playboy Radio, giving sex tips. My friends were like, you should write a book. The tips you gave me saved my marriage. Wow. But I was approaching more from the egoic state, reading a lot of Cosmopolitan magazines. I started reading Cosmopolitan magazine when I was 7. I started watching Dr. Ruth when I was 15. Okay, so I was always interested in everything about sex. And so I was having these really amazing experiences, and I'd been with a lover where I'd had 20 orgasms with him. And then I was never with him again. We're still friends. I was never with him again. And he shared with me, oh, when we were together, I was really afraid I wouldn't last long enough. He was younger than me. He was like, I was afraid I wouldn't last long enough. So I was thinking of math equations in my head.
Stop.
So that I could last longer.
Oh.
So I couldn't understand. And then when I discovered Tantra and had this experience reflecting back, I was like, oh, that's why I wasn't interested in being with him again. Because even though I had immense pleasure and I did have 20 orgasms,
he wasn't really there.
He was not fully connecting, and I wasn't feeling his complete presence. And it just was feeling still a little off. And so I was like, I don't really need to do that again. I'm good.
Wow. Fascinating. Yeah, I call the jackhammer having sex like a 21-year-old.
Yeah.
That's the jackhammer approach. It's the goal-orientated. The mission is to have an orgasm.
Yes.
And that's it. It's not to connect. It's not to just caress and appreciate the female body. It's not to, or masculine, either way, right? Yeah. And I always reckon that to kind of a younger approach.
Yes, and it's just unfortunate because we don't get the proper sex education, right? So I'm not shaming men. I mean, we just learn where we can feel like we can learn. And so there's a lot of times that people have said, like, why do you coach men? And even when I first did my first Tantra training, I actually was coached by the person that lover had dated. That was my first teacher. And I was going to get certified and everything by her. And after I trained with her for over 6 months, she shared with me, well, I don't want you to work with men, though. I don't want to have my name attached to you if you're working with men, because she was concerned that men would be trying to hit on me and would I cross a boundary. And as a Tantra coach, you're not supposed to have sex with your clients. It's a big no-no, right. Like, patient-doctor relationship, right? You don't do that. It's not ethical. And I was like, I know how to hold my boundaries. But I said, you know what? I had my whole transformation because of a man. So how am I going to leave the men behind?
Yeah.
And who are the women going to be with?
Right.
If men don't have this awareness of what's fully possible for them. So that's why I'm really passionate. It's about serving even the feminine by also supporting men.
Yeah, I'm a strong advocate for like co-ed courses. I get the whole women in a women's circle sisterhood. It can be very powerful to not have the male ego there kind of thing, and not shaming. You're right. I'm glad you said that.
We all have ego.
Yeah, of course. But it creates a different dynamic is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
And I think it's really important for the men to experience all of these things that the women are doing as well, because I would say 80% of the self-help kind of personal development courses I've showed up to are 90% women, 95% women. And that saddens me in a way, because the men are kind of being left behind, and then they're being called to be a lot more sensitive and a lot more communicative, and not just the provider, right? And we want the man to have this like really embodied feminine side as well, but we're not teaching them how per se. And so I appreciate that you're supporting them in this, because it's also pleasure for them, right? I mean,
yes.
I can't imagine anything more pleasurable for a man is to actually see the woman having such an incredible experience.
Yes, and then that energy,
wand of light.
Yes, and then the woman, that whole energy for the woman, like, is transferred to the male too. Like if you have a woman that's really tapped in, like the yoni, it's a portal, and it can have great healing. So just like, the song Marvin Gaye would sing, Sexual Healing, that's my jam. That's my theme song. I don't know if you heard it when I walked in here today, but that song's always playing in my background. And so it's so important. And then the challenge though in a co-ed situation, though. This is what's the challenge is.
Okay.
Is sometimes I have gone with my teachers and been at their circles where they have men and women. And unfortunately, some men will see, oh, there's a Tantra circle or a co-ed event. And then whenever they're doing practices, they'll cross a line. And then that makes the women uncomfortable there. And I know not all men are doing this, but it's that there's a few. And so then if I'm creating a space like that, unless I have some other men there to like kind of be monitoring and watching, then I'm having, I want the women to be safe there. I don't want someone to be trying to bust a move or be inappropriate. And even in one of these places, the teacher, the male that was doing this was even in a program to become a certified Tantra educator. Like he knows better that this is not okay. And the other person that was assisting was like, yeah, when I got paired up with him, he was kind of touching me and like it was inappropriate, his engagement with her. And so, it's just something, it's a thing to navigate, but I do want the men to be included, most definitely.
I think maybe in this capacity, maybe having like couples,
Yes.
or where it is like consensual.
Most definitely. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Let's go to the shame side because this is really important. I was actually brought up, my mother made, some side comments on like some women like maybe wore too short of a mini skirt or they were just acting too sexy. And so too sexy was frowned upon. And so I dimmed my, I didn't realize I was sexy until about 18. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is fun.
Yes.
I started playing with it. And then I think I got into my 30s and I started avoiding it. Whereas like when I was in my 20s, I was like enjoying when I walked by a construction site and they'd whistle. When I was 30, I'd cross the road and hide. Like I didn't want all that. It became like too much attention. And that sounds egoic, but it just became like an attention I didn't want for that reason,
Yes.
I wanted appreciation for other things, not just my sexy body, right?
Right.
So I went on a few directions there, but this concept of shame, how do you describe it and what does it mean to you?
Yes. Shame is just, there's a quote about, the shame is just a lie that someone has told you. And the difference in shame and guilt is like we can feel guilty because we did an action wrong or, we made it maybe a mistake. But shame is like having other people have you feel bad about yourself because you're worried about what they're thinking about you or they're making you wrong for something. You know what I'm saying? And so it really limits us. And on the emotional frequency scale, the lowest vibration of frequency is shame at 20 hertz. Love is a frequency of like 400. Enlightenment and the highest consciousness, probably, the people that are meditating for hours a day, they're at about 700.
Right.
And stay there, and when we talk about Christ consciousness, Tantra is really to try to get us to be elevated into like a Christ consciousness of that elevated vibration because he was in a state where he was staying around the vibration of 700. And that's why he was different. And when we talk about even manifestation and all these things, like attracts like. So when you want to be in attract higher vibration people or higher vibration experiences or opportunities or lovers, it's about where your vibration is. And so shame is something that lowers our vibration. It is even a lower vibration than fear and hate and anger. So as a society and as a population, it's so much easier to control us if we are not shining our light, if we're being constricted, if we're suppressing our power, and if we're being in low vibration states of shame and we're stuck in a shame cycle because then we're not able to fully self-actualize. And so that's why with pleasure and with these practices, sometimes there's shame and we feel these emotions, and that's good. We don't want to be toxic positivity. We're humans having a human experience. We just don't want to stay stuck at a certain level, and we want to just tiptoe up the ladder and try as much as we can to have moments of better feeling. And if we're feeling shame, then we can just go to the next emotion above that. But I saw something the other day that really caught my eye, and it was a post, and it was saying schools were created to control children. Churches were created to control women.
Wow.
And that prisons were created to control men. Because when prisons first came along, it wasn't for women.
Huh.
And so, you know, there's these things of putting fear in society and shaming them. You know, even back in the day, if someone committed adultery, the male didn't wear a scarlet letter, the female did. Right? Yeah. So there's so much shame about sexuality. And what I feel like is, I can understand your mother's intentions, because also in society, it's a thing that if a woman is raped, that the woman is having to prove her innocence in the situation. It's like, oh, what were you wearing? What were you doing?
Wow, yeah.
Right? So then it's like, it doesn't make us feel safe to be in our full essence and our radiance and our sensuality. We are goddesses. Like, why are we playing small? Just because some people are not able to have self-control and have respect for other people. You know, if I choose to dress sexy and go out, maybe I'm dressing sexy for me, or maybe I want to use it for someone that I am interested in and have this fun play of energy with them. Just because I walk by you and that arouses you, it wasn't intended for you. Yeah. That's not my intention. Mm-hmm. And so that does not give you the right to force your desires upon me.
Yeah.
And so even for your mom, it's like, oh, it'll be safer if you're not sexual. You know, you won't get unwanted attention. Like, let's keep you safe, because there's been such judgment of women in the past, and it still is in our present a lot, but we're trying to break free from those beliefs.
Can we go there? Because I'm really curious. Why is it so that if women feel sexually liberated, right, and they have sex with multiple men or one, it doesn't matter, but, you know, why is it so deemed inappropriate and slutty?
Yes,
labeled,
that's such a great question.
Whereas men are, you know, high-fived for it.
Exactly. And, okay, trigger warning here, but I'm going to go in on it. So my belief is, you know, back in the day, you know, our society, when we say, like, even in America, oh, land of the free. Yeah, right. But anyway, you know, the people that founded our country on some really messed up beliefs. And they came in and, like, killed people and had people as slaves. And it wasn't even about freedom. So I don't even know why our laws today are based on something that's so outdated. Like, we need to evolve as a human species, right? We can't keep thinking in those old, outdated ways. Right? And I believe that men, there's a big desire for men. Men always have a desire and a fantasy to, and I'm not shaming or making them wrong, but there's a common fantasy of, like, oh, they want to have a lot of women. Or you've seen men that have many wives. And even back in the day, the emperors would have many women in different countries. Like, you know, that's the thing that men weren't allowed to do. But honestly, men can usually not keep up with more than one woman.
Big mistake.
Unless with Tantra, they're able to be multi-orgasmic and have stamina for hours, and they're not draining their life force energy, because your sexual energy is your life force energy. So especially when we have shame and things like that, and we're repressing that, like, we were literally created from sexual energy. There should be no shame in such creation.
Is it shamed only when it isn't the goal to procreate, but rather just for pleasure? Is the pleasure the shaming part?
Yeah, because when you think even our linguistics and our language, we have a common phrase, oh, this is a guilty pleasure. Why does pleasure need to be guilty? But we don't even question that.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's just like, yeah, oh, you know, the Bible says, and you need to be married, and then you should just be with this person. But back in the day, you know, men would love to be with a lot of women, but then they're not really physically able to, but then they're here with a woman that they know deep down the woman could way outlast them. Right? And they were having land, and to be able, if they wanted to be sure their children would be able to, they would pass their fortune and their land that they bought to their children, they would marry the wives as a way of having them as property. So then they would ensure, okay, you're not being with anyone else, so I know that if you birth a child, it's mine.
Got it.
So it's like more like ownership. Nice. And I really think that the way the shame came in is that men in the past, hopefully men are evolving now, but in the past have been really jealous and fearful of this amazing capacity for pleasure and sexuality and orgasms that women have that males don't have. They can when they learn these skills, but majority of them don't have this.
So you're saying you think women actually are capable of better orgasms than men? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, but there's an orgasm gap, and women usually don't have as many orgasms as men.
Yeah.
But I have a female pleasure masterclass that the replay's available, and I share there's more, but there's like over 9+ different types of orgasms women can have. But the challenge is that men, on average, don't even know how to last long enough for us to be able to reach those orgasmic states.
Wow. Putting it back on you guys.
I mean, if you are just trying to like pump and dump and you just do everything really fast.
Right.
And you don't know how to take your time.
Yeah.
Men are like fire, and they're really quick to get hot. Like the wind could blow and they're like, oh yeah, I'm ready to go. And then as a woman, we're like water, and we need to take time for the boiling. Like, please preheat the oven. Like, we need to, you need to take the time for us to be aroused and for us to start warming up, and then we can get into our turn on. And we may have, as women, in our society, there's a lot of responsibility of the women of being present for the children and being present for the husband and looking out for everyone else's needs. So often they don't even look to source their needs. So they're so depleted. You can't pour from an empty cup. So if I don't even have time to satisfy my needs, do you think I'm going to jump to satisfy your every woman need? So like there can become some resentment there. And then men are like, I don't know why my wife doesn't want to have sex with me. Well, have you thought about, are you supporting her in all the things? Are you really aware of all that she's probably holding that you're not even aware of? That's really draining her capacity to really even get into turn on. And then for women, a lot of times in relationships, men will stop having date nights and just kind of like, oh, it's you're here. And you're in bed with me. I just get to roll you over and be like, you're ready to go. No, like for me, I love the anticipation. It's that buildup. Like women require some buildup. And then, another thing, women will have their best orgasms when their heart chakra and their heart energy center is open. So when you think about men, you want to think both men and women were a balance of masculine, feminine energy. Males have more of a balance of masculine, feminine energy because they are the XY chromosome. However, in society, feminine energy has been viewed as weakness. I, even before Tantra, was leaning and leading my life through my masculine, thinking my feminine energy was weak, that vulnerability was weakness. And I have learned through Tantra that those things have been my superpowers. But for males, they don't want to be told that they're like, in the past, are you gay? Which that shouldn't even be a shaming thing, but, or you're being a pussy or whatever, get over it. Or, even as kids, boys don't cry, like all these things, right? Yeah. And so there's just this way of like, they're just really get to where when they're 18 and they graduate at high school or whatever, a lot of them like join the military to be like such the man, or they're a big sports fan, or they're an athlete and look how I'm such a man, because they're so fighting the feminine aspects of themselves. And when they can have that balance in that marriage, the yin yang, like the balance between those and hold the duality, that's the power, holding both of those things at the same time. Then you can have a dance with this and be fully empowered. And so, whenever with males and females, like I want you to imagine a battery, and not to say one energy is negative or positive or, whatever, but in the male, the positive pole of a battery would be their penis. And the female, it's their heart, right? And so for the male, their positive pole is their penis, their negative pole is in their heart, female's positive pole in their heart, negative pole in their sex organs or their pussy, vagina, whatever. And so that's why males, a lot of times when they want loving attention and acceptance, they want to really quick send a dick pic or, hey, look at my dick. Like that's, and then through the dick, they say you get to a man's heart through his stomach. It's through the dick. It's
I saw a shirt once. It said, if you think the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, you're aiming too high.
Yes.
That is hilarious.
I love that. Yes. And so what happens is for women, that's why women, for us to feel more open and turn on and get our yoni and our pussy to open and really want to receive, our hearts need to be open first. And that's why we want more romance first. We have these other desires, unless we're really leaning in the masculine. Before Tantra, I was approaching sex like a dude. And I was like, oh, are you DTF? And what's your style? And like, let's make a plan. We don't have to have dinner.
DTF?
Like down to fuck. Like I was literally like, I was such in my masculine about sex.
Wow.
And so, but really for the feminine, whenever, that's why we want romance. Because then when our heart opens more, everything below opens more. For the man, when everything is accepted and loved below, then that energy can come up into the heart and then the heart can open.
Interesting.
And whenever a woman feels really safe. So even though maybe the partner, they've been together for a while and he's not like physically threatening her, but if he's very judgmental and shaming her, or she's worried if he's cheating and not monogamous, or her intuition is telling her like something is feeling off, she will be more guarded and she won't feel so safe. So even though you're having sex, she will not be in her most orgasmic, fullest expression, and she won't be as open and receptive to it because that heart part is closing down and that keeps everything closed down.
Makes so much sense.
Right? And so in relationships, what happens when we lose the spark and the desire, remember, like a battery, you have to have the positive and negative charge. One person needs to be leaning more in their masculine energy and the other needs to be in their feminine, so you create that spark to have the desire. And it doesn't matter if you're the same sex couple or opposite sex couple. I can choose to be more in my masculine and my lover can choose to play more in their feminine. And what happens a lot in relationships when we cohabitate for a long time or we've been married for a long time, we start to be so similar and so familiar with one another that we are leaning into the same energetics. We're both really in our masculine or both really in our feminine, and we're lacking that polarity. And we're like, I love them, but this feels more like a roommate situation or like my brother or sister. I'm not really feeling that desire and that passion, but it's about coming into those dynamics. And then in the corporate world, for women to be successful and be taken seriously, we needed to operate in our masculine. So it can be so challenging, if I have female clients that are attorneys or whatever, and they're really leading in the corporate world in their masculine energy, and then they come home, they don't know how to flip that switch, and then they're not having that passion, or they're not even able to attract the right partners, and then they're like, why do I keep attracting maybe really feminine men that are very kind of more weak, and I'm not having like a man that's really in his like healthy masculine.
Right.
Well, you need to relax into your feminine, and also your best, and even the G-spot orgasms flow the most when women's hearts are fully open and we really feel very safe. That's when you unlock the most pleasure, when we know we're not being judged. And also another thing, as much as males can enjoy witnessing a woman orgasming, if we know that you're overly focused on our orgasm, or for when I work with clients that maybe they've had a challenging time orgasming with penetrative or partnered sex, I'm just like, you're putting too much pressure on it. You're overthinking it. When we're overthinking, we're under feeling. And so it's just like, he may have the best of intentions. Like, I really want to help her have an orgasm and I really want to do this, but it's putting pressure. And really it's about enjoying the journey. How much intimacy, how much pleasure can you share for a period of time and really drop in and be connected and enjoy the journey and not be so focused on the goal.
Yeah.
Right? And then that will just naturally flow as you become more relaxed and more comfortable and learn each other's bodies and turn-ons, and then things can flow. But just let go of like that performative stuff that we've seen in porn. It does not need to look like that.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
That really is supportive because I can see both sides. You've really shared both sides really well. How do you support each side communicating more their needs or their desires? if there is this kind of underlying like sense of shame, like, ooh, that might be too naughty, or, you know?
Yes. Great question. I actually have a healing from sexual shame masterclass that I did that I have the replay because it's so important, you know, and I talk about shame and self-pleasuring and things like that. And the importance too of self-pleasure can have a lot of shame, but when we can learn to be our own best lover, we can be a better lover and have more pleasure, right? So us being tuned into our bodies is so important. And so ask the question again.
And so, yeah, how do you support people in asking for what they want?
Okay, yes. So it's really about, I share with them tools or different books and resources to first really stop and think about their beliefs. Like I highly recommend the book, The 4 Agreements by Dominique D'Vita, yes. Because we have the inner critic, the judge happening, and we adopt a lot of beliefs about how things should be that aren't even our own personal truth.
Yeah.
Like we've adopted what our caregivers or our parents or what we saw around us. But that might not be our truth. Yeah. We need to question that. So getting back to like, really, what is your truth? And there's another book by Don Miguel Ruiz's son, Jr., about like the 7 keys to, you know, spiritual relationships or, you know, healthy relationships. And that one I highly recommend to my clients have a partner. And that helps you really understand how our childhood wounds and other things can be playing how your partner's showing up in relationships. So it's first like, I encourage them, I'm like, first, let's do some emotional writing, release techniques for the frustration that you've been feeling, or if you've been feeling shame, or if you've been feeling rejected. Let's take the charge out of that. Let's teach you some tools to regulate your nervous system. These are things I'm learning in my Master Coach program to support your nervous system so that when you have the conversation with them, you're not coming with as much charge. And you've let go, you know, you've kind of processed out through some of the things or the fears that you're having around it. And then you can hold a better, you know, a safer space. And if it's not received well, you also have some tools to take some deep breaths and regulate yourself so it doesn't throw you off.
Yeah.
But just to talk about that and just know that, you know, even consent should be just a full body yes if you want to do something. So if you want to talk to your partner about maybe doing something, I always say, if you're not a full yes to it, keep it as a no. You know, it can even be a maybe, like maybe we'll do it later. If you're not a full yes, don't just try something to be loving or to indulge your partner, because that's not being loving to yourself. And when we're doing these things sexually that really we don't want to do, then our body, you know, women are like, I'm not able to have orgasms. Well, if you've been having sex with men who have been kind of violating you or not having respect for you, or they're just not even warming you up or taking the time, and they're just like penetrating you really fast, like your body is like, what's happening? That's almost traumatic. Like, why is this all of a sudden inside here? We weren't even ready for this, right? You need to be turned on by the idea. So you can share these ideas to explore and then say, oh, well, I don't know that I'll be yes to this, but maybe there's a way to modify that or something else that could be mutual, but just not judging that person, just being curious and having compassion. And it's so wild that like we can literally have sex and be fully naked with someone, but it's so challenging to even have eye contact, which Tantra talks a lot with intimacy practices. There's eye gazing, because intimacy is into me, you see. And we can be so challenged to talk about what we want and what we desire. And even for women, I'm just like, whatever you do, don't fake an orgasm, because you're giving mixed signals to your lover. And then in their mind, they're going to think, oh, she really liked that thing I did because that's when she had the orgasm. I'm going to do more of that. No, you don't want more of that. So just communicate. And even if you're like, I'm never going to be with that person again, hey, let him know just to help the next girl out. So he knows, hey, that move you do, you know, maybe you need to try something different. I had one guy call me. He was like, it's not really nice that you don't message me. This is my pre-Tantra days. It's not really nice that you don't message me or text me after we had sex together. And I was like, well, you know, you got an audition, and if you didn't get a call back, you just didn't get a call back.
Wow. Wow.
I was savage.
Wow. I've actually messaged men who were interested in me, and we are friends to this day. And I said, the call the next morning, or the text, or just, it doesn't have to be a call, just even a message like, hey, I had a really good time with you last night. I look forward to seeing you again. Or if you don't I had a great time with you last night.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that.
That's all it takes for a woman to feel like opening up her body and letting you physically in was a good idea.
Yes.
Because otherwise, we as women, I'm going to let you guys into something, men out there.
Awesome.
There's a tendency, and maybe this is just me, I can speak for myself. I have a tendency the day after sex to evaluate whether or not that was a really good idea. Especially if it's not the partner that I'm committed to. And the thing that will convince me every time that, it was delightful and it was not shaming. There was nothing shameful about it. I enjoyed a physical experience with someone is when I hear from that man and he appreciates it. That's it. That's all I need.
Yeah.
One sentence. And I mean, I should be able to come to that in my own right. I don't need the validation, and it's really supportive and honoring to give the woman that validation.
Yeah. And I mean, what I had said to that person was disrespectful. I mean, we're still friends, but that was just part of me before I had an awakening with Tantra, and thank goodness, because it shifted me, because I was very much in my ego. Yeah. And I was a hot mess, I will just tell you. And thank goodness Tantra completely changed my life path. Yeah. And I had that first experience when I was 44. And this year on Halloween, I'll be 54.
Wow.
And so...
Not a wrinkle, folks.
Thank you.
You can't see.
Orgasms. Thank you. Orgasms are the fountain of youth. And so orgasms are the fountain youth for women. Non-ejaculatory orgasms are the fountain youth for men, because men actually decrease their longevity through frequent ejaculation.
Amazing. Are there any final thoughts that you would like to share? This has been absolutely fabulous and super informative. I'm so grateful with all the directions we went. I feel like I could have you back on and we can talk for another 2 hours.
I was just feeling that. I was like, I'm not going to go into that, because that could be a future conversation. Yeah. Just that, let go of any shame that you have about your sexuality and your sensual energy, because again, this is your life force energy. You're created from it, and we can create the lives we want with it. We can channel it, but also know that it is a sacred energy, like sex, S-E-X, sacred energy, and the X exchange.
Ooh, I like that. And
so a lot of times as an intuitive female, the feminine energy, and even when men are tapped in their feminine, they'll connect more with their intuition. The masculine is more the logical mind thinking. But anyway, with the feminine, whenever we're with the intuition, there's some days that after I would be with a lover, I would just be like, I would feel in a funk, or something would feel off. But we're literally sharing energies. They're in our aura. They're in our most personal space intimately. Yeah. And if their sales rep is showing up and they talk a good game and they polish up and act like they're okay, but if on the way to the date, they're road raging, they're having a lot of miserable things, they haven't done the inner work, when they're inside you, those energies are coming inside of you too, right. Not to put fear in, but it's just an awareness. Yeah. And so then you can feel like maybe a little more stressed or sad the next day, and you're not really sure why.
Great point.
So now I've learned, like, okay, I'm not going to be with anyone unless I would want to be like that person. And I used to be more spontaneous about having sex, but now I'm like, let me see how they are. Do they seem to have self-love? Do they meditate? How do they nourish their bodies? What is their self-care? How do they treat other people? How do they deal with conflict or stress? Do they curse when they're driving? Are they road raging? Are they quick to anger with other people? Are they disrespectful to other people? Are they aware of their childhood wounds? Are they working to unpack some things? Because there's also what I recently learned is 95% of the population in the Western world receive inadequate parenting. And the parents can have the best of intentions, but even just being born in a hospital is a traumatic experience for a baby. So we come with these little traumas. And if we want to pretend, which I did before Tantra, like, oh, I'm fine, and push it under the rug and not want to face it, Then when I'm in relationship, I'm relating to someone else and there's a challenge, then all of that can come out, right? So just knowing that, and then I guide people on doing a cord removal. Like, how do you energetically remove the energy from a past lover from your energetic field? And that's a really amazing results from that, like life-changing. Yeah, that has happened when I've guided people through that. And we think like, oh, I've gone to a lot of therapy and I've let that go. And I had even thought I had let some things go. And I was guided on this with someone that I was like, oh yeah, I guess we could do that. A cord removal on him. Like, this month will be 20 years since I left. Okay. And it was a really toxic relationship. But I had like given him and his new partner a hug. I had made peace with it mentally. Right?
Physically, no.
And then whenever they guided me on this, so, okay, real quick. Before this, I had just within 6 weeks of me having the session, I had did a conscious uncoupling with someone that I had my healthiest relationship with. And we had lived together and been together for 2 years. And they did the cord removal with him. I shed not one tear. I was fine. So they're like, and it was really easy. Like, oh, well, do you want to do someone else? I was like, oh, maybe that person 20 years ago.
Wow.
And all of a sudden I'm crying. I'm in tears. Like, so much came through. And I was like, whoa, I did not even know that was really there.
Wow.
And so the results that my clients get from that and how it shifts things in their life, because we can also wonder, why are we attracting the same types of partner, but we're also can be carrying, almost like Pigpen and Charlie Brown, that bubble, we can be carrying some of their energetic debris in our auric field.
Wow. It's amazing what the body stores.
Yes.
Every memory, every energetic, unresolved trauma it holds on to.
Yes, for sure.
Dominique, what a blessing. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom. I really appreciate you.
Yes, it's such an honor to share. Thanks for having me here. And
Yay.
I'm just a huge permission slip to pleasure and using it even for our personal growth and transformation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. We're going to put all of those, all your contact information in the show notes, and we're definitely going to have you back on to discuss more, because we can go to these juicy topics way more often.
I'm looking forward to it.
I love you guys.